African Union has condemned Russia's attack on Ukraine and is calling for an immediate ceasefire, saying the situation risked escalating into a plenary conflict, or should I say a massive conflict. Now, the Union is calling on Russia to respect international law, the territorial integrity and the national sovereignty of Ukraine. Let's get more on this now. We're joined by the spokesperson of the AU, and that's Eba Galondo, who speaks to us from Addis Ababa. Ms. Galondo, thank you very much for your time. Can I just get you to affirm what I've just read to the viewers, that the African Union is calling on Russia to respect international law by doing what exactly?
Well, in fact, we're calling on the Russian Federation and any other regional and international actor to respect international law, the territorial integrity and national sovereignty of Ukraine. Oh. That is the position of the African Union and has always been.
And so it is the view of the AU that Russia has indeed invaded Ukraine.
Let me be clear. If that what I said was not unclear, we are calling on any actor, especially the Russian Federation, to respect the national and territorial integrity of Ukraine. What is happening right now is a serious and dangerous situation that is being created in the Ukraine, and it's clear that all the parties, it's the consistent position of the African Union, and not only because of the statement that you've just cited from 4 days ago that we brought out, that political negotiations have to start without delay. No war. No, we've lived the consequences of the invasion of other countries, and we cannot afford another war. And this can escalate into a planetary disaster. And it is really incumbent on all of the parties to meet without delay, to start political negotiations on any political differences that they might have, not only for the Ukraine, but also for the Russian Federation, certainly for the region, and also for the world. Because in the last 4 days, we've seen the reversal and unprecedented international mobilization and foreign policy ramifications due to this crisis, and it has to stop now.
Okay.
The African Union, for one, I must say this, that we have heard that there is a delegation from the Ukraine and the Russian Federation that has met at the Belarusian side of the Ukrainian-Belarusian border for talks. This is important, and this must be given a chance.
All right, and I think it's clear in your words, Ms. Galondo, that Russia is the aggressor here. Can I ask you another question related to this, and that is, why do you think Russia has taken this extraordinary step of invading Ukraine?
I cannot speak on the behalf of Russia or the Russian position. All I can say is that all parties, whatever difference they might have, if they are legitimate, they need to be able to meet without delay, and all support must be given for dialogue to be able to have a chance. Again, we are on the brink of an unprecedented disaster, and I don't think this is good either for the Russian Federation, nor for Ukraine, certainly not for the neighborhood. And seeing that Newzroom Afrika is reporting on it, it's not good for the world.
Yeah. I must put this question to you, that the AU is representative of member states. As you say that the position of the AU is for the Russian Federation, along with any other regional or international actors, to respect international law. Is that the view of all member states?
We are the African Union Commission. All member states of the African Union are sovereign nations.
And therefore?
Can have their own view.
And so I take it that with that comment, you're saying that not all member states of the AU are in agreement with this
All I'm saying...
With this position of the AU?
No, it's really important that you understand what I'm trying to say. The African Union Commission is an organ of the Union, and the Union is made up of 55 member states, all of which are sovereign member states who have bilateral and multilateral relationships of their own with all other member states which are on and off the continent. Let me be clear about that.
All right. I think you are clear enough. Let me ask you this question. Yeah. You have heard, I think it was a story just before coming to your interview about the African students and Indian students who have found difficulty in trying to get to the border of Ukraine and Poland. What is your understanding of why this is being done? Because it would seem that the Ukrainian nationals are being prioritized over African or people of Indian descent.
Listen, this is a humanitarian disaster that we haven't seen on this scale, at this rate, in recent history. And the fact that it's happening in the Ukraine now, what we know is that in the last 4 days, 220,000 people have crossed from Ukraine into Poland alone. It took 2 years for Syrians to cross the border into Turkey to the amount of 215,000. So the volume of people trying to leave Ukraine from Ukraine to the Polish border is unprecedented. And it's not just Ukrainians. As you say, they are Africans, they are people of other nationalities. In fact, the Ukrainian men of conscriptable age are not allowed to leave the country because they are being conscripted. The utter chaos, the utter panic, I don't know whether it's cognitively understandable to any of us so far away. And what is happening now is an absolute humanitarian disaster for everybody, for Ukrainians, for everybody who has the misfortune of being there right now and trying, as they must, to be able to get to safety if they can.
And so yours is to say there shouldn't be any discrimination, regardless of what nationality you are. If you are at a particular border, you should be let through.
All people, being human beings, are born equal, within times of peace or whether in times of war. And certainly, people have right under international law to be able to seek safety from conflict. And they have the same rights to compassion, to support, and facilitation, notwithstanding their ethnic, racial, or any other identity that they might ascribe to. This is no different.
How important is the African voice, Ms. Kalondo, on what is going on between Russia and Ukraine? How important and how weighty do you think that voice should be, particularly in the UN Security Council?
That's a very good question. You know, the African Union, Africa is represented at the United Nations in the Security Council, as you might know, by 3 non-permanent members. And in fact, when the Security Council met 5 days ago for the first time in an emergency meeting on Ukraine, the A3, the African non-permanent members of the UN Security Council, were strongest in condemning the situation that was unfolding then and is continuing to unfold in the Ukraine. But the African Voice 3 non-permanent members are non-permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. It's clear in times yet African nations make up a third of the membership of the United Nations. It is also now, and as you might be aware, that the issue of Ukraine has now been referred to the United Nations General Assembly, which will be meeting this morning to speak on the issue of Ukraine following the non-consensus at the Security Council. It's the first time this has happened in 40 years. I cannot begin to overstate how important and how dangerous the situation has become for it to come this far within the international relations arena. But your question pertaining to the African voice, it is important. And at the beginning, we were heard, our voices were extremely strong through the non-permanent members who are Gabon, Kenya, and I believe Ghana at the Security Council right now. But you know, this seems to be a war of the powerful. But our voices remain important if we continue to raise them. And the thing is, I think it's important to really sort of point out that we've lived the consequences of invasions and war. We've seen this in Afghanistan, we've seen this in Syria, we've certainly seen this in Libya, and the consequences that we are living today in the Sahel, where we've got blocks of terrorism that has come as far as Mozambique. So there should be no triumphalism in this moment for anybody, whether it be for Ukraine, whether it be for Russia, whether it be for Europe, or whether it be for the world. We are all interconnected, and really dialogue is the only way for all of us, because it will affect all of us.
If at the Security Council level there is a particular vote, those 3 African states that are represented there, yes, I note their status, that of being non-permanent members. How should they vote?
They can't. That's the paradox. They are non-permanent members. Again, you're speaking to a very fundamental issue of the structure of the United Nations system, including the peace and security architecture of international relations, which is vested in the UN Security Council. Is that how can you have a third of humanity not on this important arbiter of global peace and security as a permanent member?
And it's good that viewers are well aware of exactly the reason for that question. Can I ask you this one final question? Do you, as the AU, agree with the position that says there's no war that is being effected against Ukraine, but what simply is happening is a military operation, a special military operation to liberate Ukraine? Do you go along with that view?
No, I do not. Look, however you want to frame this issue, the fact remains that we are, if this conflict is not arrested soonest, we are all on the brink of a planetary disaster. So, you know, I don't think that there's any intellectual luxury right now to sort of go, oh, well, maybe this and not that. Whatever it is, it's an immediate and massive threat to global peace and security.
All right. Let me, one final chance at getting the AU's position crystal clear. Here's my question to you. Last week, I think it was on Thursday, the US President, Joe Biden, said that any country that supports Russia's naked aggression against Ukraine will be stained by association. I note that each member state within the African Union has its own bilateral agreements with either of these countries that are at war with each other. But what would the AU encourage member states' attitudes to be towards Russia?
Again, and I'm going to try to be clear, if I haven't been clear to this point, is that this is not about one superpower against another superpower and their perceived ideas of themselves and what should be done. Africa is pro-peace, and we are on the brink of a planetary disaster. At the risk of repeating myself, we need to stop this war. We've seen and we are living as a continent the consequences of wars like this, and they do not end, and the toll is incalculable. The entire world is trying to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, really, and I say this with respect, this is not the time for intellectual sort of semantics. The hour is grave, and the only possible opposition to have as a reasonable person is to opt for dialogue and to speak through those political differences to make sure that the preoccupations of both parties are adequately taken into consideration. The alternative is not an option.
That's the spokesperson to the AU chairperson, Ms. Eba Kalondo. Thank you very much for making the position of the African Union clear. All right.